that I think is something that we should be thinking about carefully. That's not the same thing as game design. It really isn't. It is really not the same thing as game design. So that means that if you, this is what will happen. For one reason or another, your game design stops long before it should have stopped. You don't fucking finish designing the game. You just don't. And you get too excited about making the book and production schedules and the art and the layout and the Kickstarter campaign and everything, right? You get so excited about this. And frankly, that's easier than continuing to design the game. It just is. It's very logistic and it's very feels real. So you do this and you have, therefore, a game which you are not sure really, I mean, you don't really have a good pedagogy for it because that's one of the last things you design. You have to know like what it is before you can develop a pedagogy. So developing a pedagogy for it is really poor in most role-playing games. And you don't even really have that. And you also, your procedures aren't really finishing, right? Or they don't go, a lot of games are very good for the first few sessions of play, but they didn't play test at all past that. So everything past that is vague and badly constructed, right? So that happens a lot. So your procedures aren't great, frankly. And then third, what's the one thing you can fill space with? Encyclopedic content, which just bloats and falls and sprawls over everything. You know, everything in the game becomes an encyclopedia. So do you see what I'm driving at? Is that when you ask, how do we teach different, this particular technique? I mean, there's hundreds of techniques we can name, right? But how do we teach this particular technique that a lot of people haven't experienced is the way that distribution of authorities can differ. And then you can have games where they actually shift, right? That's a lot to take in if you haven't encountered it. So you're asking this, and that's a good question, but it does forget the larger question, which is, how do we teach anything regarding role-playing? What is the pedagogy that's appropriate for this particular game for people who haven't encountered it, so that through light, contact and continuing contact, they rapidly internalize how things work and take more and more, agency over using what's available to them. And maybe early play isn't as sophisticated, right, or use all the pieces as later play, but it wasn't going to be anyway, right? So therefore, why don't we live with that and say, let's treat this as a positive learning experience. So what are the techniques for that for this particular game? Hey, when people start writing role-playing games like that, call me. Because I'd like to be there when that happens. Now we can go, given that, now we go to this question. I think I have the answer pretty well stated. We look at how they do work in this game. And you really just are very blunt in the beginning of play. You're very blunt about what you get to say that other people have to listen to. Okay, I'm the game master, sure, like in some game, right? I say, yeah, I'm the game master. But when you have that to say, I have to take it and like it. But you don't get to mess with this. That still remains my job. And then so you just are very blunt about that. So what you don't want to do is put people on the spot. You roll, and then you say, oh, you succeeded. So what's in the chest? Right? It's very boring to achieve opening the chest and then have the responsibility of saying what's in it. That's very boring. It's not fun. You need to think about what information is passed this way and what information is passed that way as a consequence. If you're like, I get the chest open, oh, now I get to say what's in it, right? There's no interchange there. So there are obviously games in which getting to say what's in the chest is important, but it should be embedded in some way that different authorities or different input actually touch one another. So, at least in the case of the guy walking across the bar, both of them are okay because each one has what the player says, each one has what the GM says. They just differ slightly in about what for the GM. That's all. But it's still information going from this person and from that person to intersect. So if you don't, if the person loses track of that and feels as though all of a sudden they're on the spot and they feel like, I better make up something good so that play is good, right? Oh, you see, you're blown it right there. They don't realize that they should be operating off of constraints of information that they came with. Right? If they're looking forward for how good this will be, you've lost it. They should be looking backward and seeing what all would make the most sense to be in this chest.
I think if we ever have another conversation, spending a moment of it discussing Checker principle, as you said, and how game design can influence on Checker principle, because
it's very powerful.
Because in a lot of games like Fiasco, like PTA, basically do it. You have to do it. You set your in European way of playing prime time adventures.
Oh, by the way, that's wrong. I really didn't want to make that a European thing. That's definitely invented in the States. It just got transferred aggressively.
So in this wrong way of playing PTA, a lot of people do it.
Right.
But yeah, that'll be an interesting topic, and how game design can somehow influence it to give this opportunity to have this narrative authority, but don't fall into this problem of designing your own problems.
Right. Not only procuring your own problems, but also the notion that you have nothing to work with. You're supposed to look forward with it and make it good. And that's terrifying. That's a terrible thing to say to anybody. I don't want to hear that when I play a role-playing game. So it's so you were talking about ways to teach people, and these are just some of the ideas for where they might be having trouble and what to kind of avoid, right? About sticking them with problems or sticking them with a task that isn't really coherent to them. Cool. Well,
that's a lot of topics, a lot of thoughts. My brain is like
music to my ears.
Thank you very much, Ron, for having this conversation, for giving me one of your evenings. It was wonderful. Now I have a lot to think about. I hope that this material will be useful to you or your students.
Well, it absolutely is. And I also really enjoy contacting the community of play, that you're part of. This is a great opportunity, just to enjoy playing with people, and that's what I like to do.
Yeah, I'm really happy that you are enjoying the interviews with Maciej you're having. Did you guys finish everything yesterday, or there are still some topics that remain?
There's still a little more to talk about, but it's because we got somewhere. Right, it's because
that's good.
So right, we are like, okay, this is a good foundation. Now we can talk about that other thing that probably wasn't possible. So that's good.
I'm waiting for this next episode because I watched the first one. I'm really waiting for the second one.
Excellent. Please feel free to comment at Adept Play as well, because I'd really like to know how people are responding to these, or to encourage people to come and comment.
I see some comments on your conversation with Maciej, because I see you posted this. Cool.
Yeah. So
Cool. I will maybe post our conversation. Maybe people will come here and also comment on it.
that would be wonderful. Excellent.
Thanks again, Ron. My brain is melting. I need to take a break. It was wonderful talking to you. I hope we can get back to the conversation. Now let's go and have some cool evening.
Exactly. Take care.